This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Stephen Lancaster is our guest this hour, Exonation, www.facebook.com/author Stephen Lancaster. Stephen, do you think that your near-death experience had anything to do with your ability to see beyond the grave?
That's a loaded question. I'd just like to say that it made me sit back and reflect my own life for some time and the people in my life. You know, I've spent my entire life, 20 some years now, more obsessed with what happens after death than really seeing what's right in front of me. So it was more of a retirement, a reflecting period. When you almost die, it really puts things in perspective. So I needed to step back for a bit. I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. My life didn't flash before my eyes or anything like that. The only thing that makes that accident interesting is the synchronicity. I was literally going to meet one of my investigators. I was literally going to investigate with the very first guy I ever investigated with when I started a team 10 or 11 years ago. Some of my investigators had posted on their social media that they had a bad feeling, that they were going to lose somebody, something bad's about to happen, and then, bam, I have this accident. So it was all these things. Yeah, maybe you can look too much into it, but I don't think anything supernatural was behind it. It is interesting that they never did determine what happened with the car. The front right wheel just came off, the tire came off, and they never did find it. And it caused the car to turn and flip down the highway 7 times. Literally looked like something out of a Die Hard movie, and I even say that in the book. They thought when they pulled up that there was nobody alive in that vehicle. So it's a mystery as to why it happened. I think it was something or somebody telling me, hey, you need to walk away and maybe look at things a little differently for a while.
In your bio, it says that you've done investigative work for politicians. Tell us about that.
Actually, there's a documentary coming out in about a month called Visitant, the Johnson family haunting, and that's one of the politicians. He's the mayor, or he was the mayor. At the time I was working the case, he was the mayor of this particular town, and it's about his family's haunting their house, their property. And I have medical people, nurses that work, that on the team, and they had just heard this story at one of the hospitals of this guy and what he experienced, and it turned out he was the mayor. And anyways, long story short, he found out I was interested, and we took the case and spent 4 years on it. We started that case in 2012, and in May of this past year, had so much evidence in favor of his story and the family's claims that it got a documentary deal.
So what do you consider as evidence?
Well, if it's evidence to prove to somebody, I think, until, as funny as this will sound, until we can actually physically capture one and put it on display for people to see, I don't think there's ever going to be evidence where people are going to say beyond a shadow of a doubt it exists. And then even if there is, it's going to open up a whole can of worms of ethics and morals, that person was once alive. Do you put them in like a zoo? I know it sounds ridiculous, but
no, it doesn't.
For me,
it sounds very logical.
I've already had my evidence. I've seen it. I've been physically attacked. I don't need proved anything. I'm out to help other people and either prove or disprove what they think they see.
But if I don't understand. You say you're out to help people. How does what you've done help other people?
Well, like you said earlier in the show, if there is issues with them, or there are issues with them, and you go in and you reassure them that there is nothing here, it's just your mind playing tricks on you. They're relieved, they feel better. in cases that have dealt with businesses, like the Brentwood Wine Bistro, who was worried it would hurt their business. But instead, I put this place on the map. It's in the book. It gets a TV show. Their business is up 90%. And
Yeah, but
Chef Eric will be the first to tell you.
You see,
so that helped them. They learn to accept what they have and live with it.
But we all
know
know that the so-called reality TV shows are anything but reality TV shows.
Correct.
You know, I've never seen so much garbage in all my life, and I blame a lot of this on thirsty programmers who will just throw anything on the air to fill up a time slot. And if there's people stupid enough to believe it, well, that's even better for them. The ratings go up. But when it comes to investigating restaurants, bars, hotels, bed and breakfast, this is an invitation for a cash cow when they say, you know what? I think my restaurant is haunted. You know, I think my bed and breakfast is haunted. You know, I think my hotel is haunted. Because that will automatically open the door to people, both professional, the majority of people being thrill seekers, non-professionals, to fill up their coffers.
I absolutely agree. I agree 100%. And I have this wall that goes up when a business contacts me. I do a lot of research on them. I do a lot of research on the location. And if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. And they won't get anything from me. And there have been cases where I could tell it was people wanting to profit, just as you suggested. And, you know, I'm sorry, I can't put my stamp of approval on anything if there's nothing there.
But wait a second here. Your stamp of approval, isn't that a little bit egotistical?
No, because that's their words, not mine. Believe me, if you knew me, I mean, I have book signings I got to do in October, and I don't even want to go. Okay, it is nothing like that.
But if it's not,
their words. Do you have a certificate of authentication you can give us? You know, is there something you can say so people will believe it? You know, so that's their stamp of approval. Well, hey, this author came in and said this, this, and this. They can do that. That's fine, as long as it's true. You know, it doesn't bother me. It's just like you said with these TV shows, and I've had offers to do these TV shows. My team was supposed to be subject of one, and I would not allow it because I know what these shows do, you know?
So where do you see yourself in the entire spectrum of things?
It depends on who asked that question, man.
I'm
because,
asking you.
You know, I was thinking about this before we started your show. You hear all the time, there are no professionals in this field. And I can't stand that when I hear that, because if there are no professionals, then who's listening to anybody? You know, I had a guy, I can't remember the show I was on, and I don't like to call myself a professional because, like you just said earlier, that sounds egotistical. But you can't exactly get a degree in this anymore, you know. Who is the say-all? You know, and I think if you've got experience, you know, I've done it for 2 decades. And I think, am I right all the time? Absolutely not. But I think I'm confident when I tell somebody something because I'm very thorough and honest. And you're not going to get that from a lot of people, these weekend warriors that want to look more like a metal band than they do, you know, a paranormal investigator or researcher. It's a shame because we could do a whole show on these TV shows because they've really ruined the image of what this really is.
All right. So based on your experience and the 2 decades you've been doing this, what do you think the image of a paranormal researcher or investigator is?
A Ghostbuster. That hit me one day. I was walking through a Lowe's. I was looking for a moisture detector. And some guy yelled down the aisle, "Hey, Ghostbuster." Never saw this guy in my life, but he knew who I was. You know, it hit me the day we pulled into this residential to do an investigation, and everybody gets out of their vehicles, starts unloading the equipment, and the client asks, "Where's the camera crew?" You know, this is the reality. This is what people think. They think it's like they see on Ghost Hunters, you know, or Ghost Adventurers, or whatever these other shows are. And it's not.
But you said Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters was a big movie years ago.
I love Ghostbusters. It's one of my favorite films.
So
you know,
do you guys go
people have
around
this,
with
like,
these
they
packs
think
on your
you
back?
can come in and make it go away, you know, or you're going to capture it, or I don't know what they think. It's ridiculous.
If it's ridiculous, why do you do it?
I do it for myself. If it wasn't for an accident, I wouldn't even be an author. If it wasn't for the guy you had on last night, I wouldn't even be an author. I think you had Stephen LaChance on.
Nope.
No, no. Maybe it was some other show, but he had read my manuscript, which wasn't even a manuscript. He asked me to read my most interesting cases, and I had them on a file on the computer, and I sent them to him, and he said, "This could be a book. You ought to put this out so people can actually read about what it's like to be a real paranormal investigator." And he talked me into it, and I was like, "I never thought of that. I never thought of making."
Well,
Any of this stuff a
would
book,
you say that a paranormal investigator bases his experience on his own beliefs, his own values?
Sorry, Rob, you were breaking up there. What'd you say?
I said, do you think that a paranormal investigator bases his experience or his methodology and his very own method of investigating based on his beliefs as well as on his own virtues or her virtues?
A lot of people do. A lot of people do. If they're religious by nature, they've already set the stage for what they're going to believe when they go into these things. If they're an atheist or agnostic, they've already set the stage for what they're going to believe. And I think that can hinder an investigation greatly when somebody goes in and they pull the religion card, because to me, religion does not belong in this research. To answer that shortly.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand that, because a lot of people, when it comes to the paranormal, believe it has something to do with religion.
I agree.
Yeah.
And you know what? When I assembled a team, that thought went into that. There are Catholics, there are Baptists on the team. Like I said, law enforcement, electricians, carpenters, somebody that comes to the table with something I don't have. I'm an atheist, so I am open to, okay, if they want to walk in and say, let's put salt around this house to make something go away, or it's not going to hurt anything.
That's true.
But as far as what goes down in my case file that goes to the client, that stuff doesn't go in there.
Stephen, we've got to say so long for tonight. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Great talking to you. Continued success. Exo Nation, our guest this hour has been Stephen Lancaster. Check him out on Facebook, facebook.com/author, StephenLancaster.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards, ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers its certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Stephen Lancaster is our guest. He's the author of Dark Spirits, and it was released in August of this year. For more information about Stephen, visit his website at facebook.com/author Stephen Lancaster. Stephen, this apparition, this ball of energy, you were saying that an expert from the company that loaned you the cameras, a $30,000 piece of equipment. What was his analysis of what the footage was that you actually shot?
Well, to quote him exactly, he said, "Stephen, I don't know what to say about this." Because he had, of course, his people look at it as well. And he said, if it was somebody that went through the entire room, you would see that. And he said, of course, I'm taking your word for it that outside those windows, it's a 3-story drop. He said, so it would literally have to have been outside. So he was just as dumbfounded. Wow. And he even said, because I had sent it to him on a file, that it wasn't a glitch. So he ruled that out. He thought maybe it glitched as it was coming across the room and it just kind of cut out and he just appears again in the next window. But you can see it, frame by frame that it's continuous. And maybe to answer your initial question about this, I was up in that attic and so was the initial investigator who took this case. Now, this attic's one big room with those 2 big windows at the end. On the walls on both sides are doorways that let you go out and access the rafters. I guess you could use it for storage or whatnot. We were sitting out there on the rafters, so we're out of frame completely. We're behind another wall. We're sitting in there doing a communication session, and I actually stop her and I say, is it just because it's late? Is it because of the lighting? But I think my eyes are playing tricks on me. All the way at the end of the building, over top of the rafters, I saw what looked like this black mass. But I dismissed it as just my eyes. And we continued on. And then eventually, a few choice words later, I did see what I initially thought I saw. And I'm like, there is something down there. Because you vividly saw it move. Well, then it was gone. The next morning is when I decided, hey, that thermal camera was running. Let me go back up there because it ran continuously the entire time we were there. Let me go back up there and grab that and take a look at that footage when we were in the attic. Right. So you can see us come up the stairs. You can see us walk across the attic. So you had us for comparison. We were the red. You could see the red, the heat from us. And then you see us disappear behind the wall to sit on those rafters. And then 15, 20 minutes later is when this anomaly comes out as a sphere. And then across the room, and then he's full body, or she. And at the point it disappears from that last pane is when you can hear me actually say those choice words. So when it disappears from this pane, it is now through the wall, and would have been at the opposite end if it would have come in from outside to where I could have seen it. So it was all of those chemicals that kind of added up to, okay, I thought I saw something. Then I did see something. Then I look at the thermal, and the timing couldn't have been better. It pops out in the attic. Then we see it again closer to the wall, which we're on the other side of. And then all of a sudden I see it as it leaves the attic and enters that area.
And this was using the thermal camera?
Correct.
Did anyone actually see it when it wasn't through a thermal lens?
No. The only thing I can speak of is say that I saw what appeared to be, I guess, a silhouette of a person hunched down. Like if you were just kind of hunched down without putting your rear end on the ground. and you got maybe a hand on one of your knees. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're looking down at the ground at something, or you're inspecting something. That's what it looked like to me all the way at the end of the rafters.
Yeah.
But as far as when it was out in the attic, nobody was there to physically see anything.
You said earlier that you believed it might have been a slave, since that this property was probably it had slaves going way back as the mansion and the amount of land that was around it. Why would a slave attack you?
I don't know. I wish, that's the problem with this story, and that's the problem with this case, and that's the problem with the chapters on this story. It doesn't have an ending, and that kills people. And you almost have a crutch when you write about these kind of things, because this isn't like a movie. I wish I could write fiction and give it an ending. All of this is just theory. All of this is ideas. We know it operated as a soybean plantation. We know there were slaves living there.
Right.
We know they practiced voodoo. We know a kid died. So it's all just guessing. Okay, you look at this image, it looks like Santa Claus, somebody holding a sack.
Right.
Well, who would look like that? Well, a slave would, carrying crops or whatever that they just picked. So it's all just hearsay, but that's all you really got. And as far as attacking, we walked away from that place definitely believing there was more than one. And whatever was there or is still there is intelligent and is self-aware. There were many times, which people can read about in the book, where whatever it is would mimic us. It could sound just like us. The night I was attacked, one of the investigators is alone in the building. Here's somebody from upstairs say my name, but it sounded just like one of our other investigators. She comes out expecting that guy to be out there, expecting not to see that guy. She comes out and sees we're all accounted for. Of course, she has this dumbfounded look on her face. She said, somebody in there just said your name and it sounded just like so-and-so. And then that happened to me as well in the attic. I heard a yes, the answer yes to a question, and it sounded just like one of the investigators, but he wasn't even there that night. So to say it was one entity, I don't think so. I think there was more than one. And we would get benign responses, but then we would get darker responses, more intimidating responses. But it's like I've always said to people, how do you actually know what you're dealing with? Because they have attributes we can't even fathom right now. Could it all be the same thing? Could it be pretending to be that kid initially to lure us in? It's just so many questions, Rob. I don't know.
Could it be mind over matter?
It's possible. But I mean, there were 8 of us, and when 8 people witnessed the same thing, and the way we operated, there was very little room for error. When one person would witness something, they wouldn't say a word, and we would have these we'd have this system of deduction, and then we'd wait, and the other person would write down what they thought they saw, just simple things like that. And then you find out that everybody saw the same thing, so there wasn't like, I came out of the house, I just got thrown down a flight of steps. Now everybody's got that in their head, and they go in there thinking they're going to be attacked, where they're influenced or whatnot. We were very careful with that kind of thing.
But hasn't there been a recent discovery that a group of people can project something that the rest of the people can see as well?
I believe that. I actually did I used to do radio before, and one of the episodes was called Psychokinesis versus Ghost. And I did this long episode. I was actually talking to a gal from the UK and her team, and we were arguing back and forth because I said, is it possible that maybe we are the ones creating this stuff? Is it possible? So it is.
So what happened to this case? Is it just over with? Is it pending? Is it?
Well, basically
unknown?
What happened was things became so heated that the owner basically stopped it.
Wow.
There's just so much to it. I really recommend anybody read that book. It's called Just Believe. That's the girl who, the girl I was talking about who wrote the whole book on it. I only touch base on 2 chapters in the book, my personal experiences there. But there is so much more. It's really, aside from being reality, it's really a cool story.
All right, that's number 1. Tell me your next one. because I asked you for your top, and you said, well, there's two that come to mind. So let's hear the second story.
Oh wow. Well, like I alluded to earlier with the Brentwood Wine Bistro, seeing that physical manifestation is definitely something I'm never gonna forget. Hearing my name at different locations, that's been a big thing. Anytime you can see objects move and there's no rational explanation for it, that's always been a good thing. I did a military facility in Wilmington.
Right.
And another case where I physically saw a manifestation, 6 foot tall, solid black silhouette of a man. And I watched him for a good 3 minutes. And it was in an old USO building.
Did you take a picture?
Soldiers were on leave or whatnot, they'd go there for R&R.
Did you take a picture?
Well, here's the thing. I had my video camera on this guy the entire time. This is in the theater area of the building. Huge building. And I'm, I guess, at what you would call stage right.
Yeah.
And I just happened to look out into the audience. And the audience, there aren't any chairs unless they have something going on there. So it was just this nice, glossy, like a gymnasium floor, to picture it. And what really made this guy stand out to me is I see him. And I'm like, okay, this has just got to be light play, shadows or whatnot. But behind him was an exit sign. He was blocking out the red from that exit sign. And when he moved, you could see the red all of a sudden on that glossy floor. That's when it got my attention. Like, this thing just moved. It was blocking the light. So it was mass. You know what I mean? It wasn't a shadow. It was actual physical mass to block that light. So I'm kind of like, hey, whispering across the stage to the 200 investigators. I said, come here. Are you guys seeing what I'm seeing looking through this camera? They stood there with me and looked at this person. And right before it literally just vanished, as cliche as that sounds, it screamed out, "Fight around the world." And it sounded like it was British. It definitely wasn't. It wasn't a Yankee accent. And then it was gone. And then it's like the whole auditorium just lit up, so to speak. It was like this blackness just disappeared. And immediately I couldn't wait to review the tape. Yeah. And when because back then I was actually using film, there was nothing there. It was like I was looking at nothing. And if it wasn't for the other two investigators that saw it too, I still would have believed I saw nothing. But it didn't film it.
Why is it that some people have these experiences and others can be with investigators who see things and they don't see anything?
I've heard that. And I believe that a lot with some of the people I continue to work with. I tend to compare that to magnetism, spiritual magnetism, so to speak. It's like when you roller skate for 3 or 4 hours and then you take the skates off, you still kind of feel like you have the skates on. Or, or when that batter goes up to before he goes up to swing, he's swinging 3 bats in the dugout, So when he goes up to swing, it's a lot lighter. Well, when you take a paper clip, maybe this will explain it better. You take a paper clip and you rub it vigorously on a magnet. For a brief moment in time, that paper clip becomes magnetized. Well, I think with some people like myself, this is what I do all the time. This is all I do, aside from write about it and do some film. And the people I work with, it's the same thing. So we are constantly putting ourselves in these situations where we are around alleged spiritual activity. Is it because we are around it so often we become magnetized, so to speak? Because there are cases I've worked. This isn't like TV where they make you think you go in somebody's house for 6 hours and you've got it all figured out. I don't do that. I spend years at one location on top of, the 12 others I'm working too. But
sure,
it's never just one and done. You can't expect it. It's not like you can sell tickets for it.
All right,
I can't expect to experience what somebody experienced over the span of 25 years in one night.
All right, stand by. We've got to take our final break. Exo Nation, Stephen Lancaster's our guest. www.facebook.com/author Stephen Lancaster. We'll both be back after this short break. Don't go away.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Exonation, Stephen Lancaster is our special guest. In 2009, he self-published Paranormal Investigator, True Accounts of the Paranormal, which was later discovered by Llewellyn worldwide and re-released as True Case Files of a Paranormal Investigator. The book contains personal case files, welcomed stellar reviews from the general public, and was added to the Library of Congress. Lancaster retired in 2014 following a near-fatal car accident. 2 years later, he began work again in the field. Dark Spirits was the follow-up to his 2012 offering. It's slated for... It should have been released by now, shouldn't it, Stephen?
Yes, that is correct.
Excellent. Congratulations. Stephen has also appeared on various news broadcasts revolving around paranormal phenomenon and often gives public lectures on the subject. His website, once again, Exonation on Facebook, facebook.com/author Stephen Lancaster. All right, Stephen, tell us about the very first investigation that you did that was the pivotal point that got you hooked.
Oh, wow. Let me try to do that with two of them.
Okay.
I would say the very first one was in 97. It was very Neanderthal. Literally ran around with an old, authentic Boy Scout compass. That's how I determined any kind of magnetic disturbances. And a notepad and pencil and a rabbit's foot just for the sheer novelty of it. And it was just a graveyard. Somebody had told me a story about this woman. The kid died in a motorcycle accident. And I went up there, and I just liked it. It was more of the what could be that got me, rather than what actually was. And then you fast forward from there to 2008, 2009, at a place called the Brentwood Wine Bistro in Little River, South Carolina. And that's the moment, that's the first time I ever saw physically a manifestation right in front of me. No denying it. Okay, case closed. I knew I was right all along, that kind of thing. And I researched that location for 2.5 years after that. And it became the largest chapter in that first book, because that was the first time of witnessing something like that. But I never, I wasn't able to prove it, so to speak, if there's some higher power to prove this to. But that one really sticks out because it was from that point I knew it was possible to see them. So the next step is not capturing them physically, but, in some kind of film medium, get them on, camera in some way. So I know it's possible.
And did you capture it on camera?
Not there, but at another location that's in the book Dark Spirits that came out in August. The best piece of footage I have, and I'm holding it very dearly. I show very few people this piece of footage because once it hits the internet, it's gone. If you know what I'm saying.
I sure do.
And it's a thermal piece of footage, and it's remarkable. And I write about it in great detail in that chapter. It's the attic of this building, 3 stories up, an old plantation house, and there are 2 windows you can vividly see. The shot is centered. And you see this blue sphere come from the right about the size of a basketball. And it's in the first pane of glass. Then it disappears. And then as it gets to that last pane of glass, it had manifested into a full body. It looked like somebody hunched over, like they were carrying a sack. To describe it a little bit better, like a slave would, back during the, plantation days.
Right.
And what really made that piece of footage remarkable is the fact that you saw it in the first pane of glass, didn't see it as it proceeded, but then saw it again when it hit that second window, which means that it was outside of the building, 3 stories up in the air. And I mean, it's giving me chills just telling you about it, because I've shown people this footage and they just drop their jaw. There's no sound, nothing. You just see this manifestation come from the right. You can see him right through the window. He disappears because now he's behind the wall outside. And then you see him again when he hits that second window, but he's full body. It's unmistakably a man, a human figure.
Did you do any background investigation into the plantation to try and discover who this was?
Absolutely. Initially, there's actually a whole book on this location now. One of the investigators that I worked with on that case, she penned an entire book on it. And initially, we thought it was this little boy who had drowned in this pond. And the way that happened historically didn't make any sense. It was like he went out into the middle of the pond and just let himself drown, almost as if it was suicide. And then there were rumors that he was bullied out into the middle of that pond by, whether it be human interference or something supernatural. But something made him stay out in the middle of that pond until fatigue came over him and he drowned. So initially we thought it was him, but then the more we researched about the property, the 3 slave quarters, there was voodoo practice.
Oh, wow.
We thought maybe something darker had happened,
Where did the voodoo come in? Was it because that these slaves were practicing voodoo on the property?
Exactly. The 2 slave quarters that were still erect,
Yes.
had the symbols, the snake symbols, the ropes. I mean, there was
Oh
a
my
lot of
gosh.
stuff still in these buildings. The markings on the walls. It was all voodoo when we referenced it. So either somebody, and the fact of the matter is, in 1940, this place shut down. So it remained empty until probably 2005, 2006. This dentist bought it to renovate it, and initially he wanted to turn it into a bed and breakfast. Forget about the 80 some acres that's out behind the plantation house. He just wanted to turn the plantation house, and he started to experience these things that weren't so kind. And he brought in the investigator that I'm talking about that wrote the book.
Yes.
It's called Just Believe. And then she brought in a whole team, which included me and my team, the PIT at the time. And we spent probably a year at this location. It was pretty much a camping situation, campers, tents, bringing our own power, because there wasn't any power, wasn't any running water. So you were dealing with 115 degree heat index in July, in North Carolina. It was rough because not only did you have to battle the supernatural, but the elements.
Sure.
Actual animals. This is 80 some acres where most of it was forest. So we were armed, of course. I have military people on my team. I have law enforcement on my team. So it was more than just a ghost hunt, so to speak.
What were the conditions, the atmospheric conditions, the temperature, the weather at the moment you captured this anomaly?
That was in January, so it was bitter cold. I would say, looking back, it was below freezing because we were running a fire outside. We were in campers at that point. Most of the stereotypical stuff, the voices, the cracks, the creaking. There was a lot of growling. We would get in the hotter months, in the warmer months. Which at first, we attributed to, okay, it's the building shifting.
Sure.
We're all moving around in this building. Nobody's done it in X amount of years, But it was the dead of winter when we got that thermal hit. And there's so much I don't want to go into because it's in the book, but that same night, 3 of the investigators were physically harmed, physically attacked. One was thrown up against a wall. And he's a big old boy, ex-military, 300 some pounds, thrown up again. I saw this happen with my own eyes. Another investigator was thrown down a set of steps. I was hit in the face and later discovered 3 precise, almost like it was done with a scalpel or X-Acto knife across my face. 3 slashes, and I didn't feel that. What I felt is best described when you try to put 2 magnets together at opposite polarity, that force.
Yeah.
They don't, that's what it felt like. It just felt like this magnetic force, kind of like a punch to the face. And it put me down half of the steps and I hit the landing. Then my other investigator kind of followed, knocking me down the rest of them. And it was later they pointed out, hey, what's wrong with your face? And it was that same night that the thermal footage caught what it did.
Why do you think this entity or this spirit, this ghost, or whatever it is, attacked you?
It's all theory, because I joke about it. I even joke about it in the book. It sounds like it belongs as an episode of the X-Files because it's so bizarre. But these cases are just a dime a dozen, or not a dime a dozen. They're very rare. We thought, well, it was bruising the women, and we thought initially, just from going up and down in this building, trekking along in the woods, they're bruising themselves. It was bruising them in their thighs. But the actual real harm came to the men. And we thought, and it saved me for last, to bring some drama into this. But we thought, if it brings down the guys and we call it, if we say, okay, it's not safe here, we don't belong here anymore, then it wins, we leave. That was our theory. Take down the strength, so to speak. Not saying that, to be sexist or not, you know what I mean. Just take down the men that keep charging in here, that keep insisting on living here and doing this investigation. And if we beat them, I get my place back, as silly as it sounds.
But why go there in the first place? What did you try to accomplish? Like, if this is the resting place of a spirit or a ghost, why taunt it by going?
Well, to be honest with you, there no taunting existed. I don't provoke. The team I rolled with at that time, there's no provoking, not like you see on TV. It was none of that. It was more or less trying to learn, trying to help. We thought if something was angry, we thought Did it need to say something to somebody? Again, initially we thought we were dealing with a little child, this Jimmy kid. But then it later turned out it was not the case. But then, I'm not afraid to admit it now, and neither are the rest of the group. That place kind of took us over, where people, members of the group would call off work. One was a school teacher, others, they would just show up, they'd go, oh, hey, I'm up here at the plantation again. What? No, you're not supposed to be there by yourself. It's like the place just sucked you in. Once it started giving you these pieces, like, wow, this is just too good to pass up, too good to be true. We got to keep going back. It became like a drug, so to speak.
Or was it the thrill, that the adrenaline rush of being there, of being part of something that is paranormal, that you may be part of something that is the smoking gun? Could this also be it? You're a psychologist.
I can't speak for the rest of them. Possibly for some of them it was. For me, it was a lot. It was like, yeah, this could be the key. This is so, I have never seen anything so, I've never seen a place this active in my life. And still to this day, I haven't. There are members of that team that no longer participate in research and investigating because of that location. I walked away with that, like, just as another piece, like, wow, I'm on the right path here. And I can't say it was for the thrill. It was more of like, what more can I get? How much more can I get from this place? And it all led up to getting that great piece of thermal footage, until eventually we just had to, once people started getting physically hurt, we just had to walk away from it.
Interesting. Question. How could you catch a spirit on thermal image when, according to everything that I've heard over the many years, there is no heat signature?
Well, I don't know. I don't build the machines. I don't know what their temperament are. I've thought about that too. And I had a guy from California look at this footage. Actually, it was the guy from the company of the camera. This was a $30,000 thermal camera we were using specifically for this location. And it was on loan from this company. And I've asked him that question, because it was bluish, it was greenish, and by the time it was full body, it was more of a blue color. Wasn't a lot of heat signature, so to speak, the reds, the oranges, the burnt oranges.
Right.
And if it would have went through the entire room and you saw it that way, I probably would have thought it was an investigator. But aside from the fact that it was actually outside, 3 stories in the air, but there were 2 investigators up there at the time.
All right, we've got to take a little bit of a cliffhanger here. We've got to take our break at the bottom of the hour. X-Zone Nation, Stephen Lancaster is our guest. Facebook.com/author Stephen Lancaster. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randall, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and if you have any doubts on why extraterrestrials do not show themselves to the public, all you have to do is watch the news. Like, man, I'll tell you something. Today in the news, it's crazier than ever. It seems that as we get towards the end of this year, craziness is the key word. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, worldwide. You can visit us online. All our social media sites, X Zone Radio TV, our main website, www.xzoneradio.com, and you can always send an email to studio@xzoneradiotv.com. My first guest tonight is paranormal researcher Stephen Lancaster. He is a published author of Supernatural Phenomenon. He also is the producer of Monster Vision TV. Now, Stephen has been involved in the field of paranormal research since 1997, conducting investigative work for politicians, military facilities, the Board of Education, museums, commercial locations, businesses, television, and civilians. In 2007, he formed PIT, Paranormal Investigative Team, which was later dubbed the Pit Crew. During its peak, the Pit had members and divisions in North Carolina, South Carolina, Maryland, Kentucky, Connecticut, New York, West Virginia, California, and more. Stephen appeared on A&E Biography, My Ghost Story in 2011, and again in 2012. He's been interviewed on hundreds of radio shows and television shows, and joining us now is Stephen Lancaster. And Stephen, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Rob.
I have to ask you, what was it that kind of pushed you in the direction to become a paranormal investigator?
Oh, that's easy. Well, I wrote about it in my first book. It's pretty much how the book starts. But back in 1987, I was 10 years old. I had an experience like most people do. And long story short on that, it sparked my interest. And I grew up in a very Christian, strict military home. And that wasn't stuff you talked about. So I had to do research on my own. Libraries, just whatever I could find on cryptozoology, parapsychology, UFO phenomena. And all I did was study for about 10 years. And in 97, the small town I'm from in Maryland, it didn't take long for it to get it around. Hey, you're the guy that knows all the ghost stuff. I was kind of my area's Fox Mulder, so to speak. So, people started coming out of the woodwork. Hey, would you check out my house? Just don't tell anybody, or can you come check out our business? And I kind of just took it from there, hoping to run into somebody that had a similar experience, somebody that could maybe give me answers for what happened to me. And it just kind of snowballed from there and became my life.
What would you say your forte is, your strength, the number one aspect of the paranormal that you believe that you are stronger in than any other? Or do you believe that your expertise kind of does the entire spectrum?
I think that's, to answer that, it's more of a case-by-case basis, so to speak. I kind of pride myself, my degree's in psychology. So before anything paranormal even begins with a said case, I'm dissecting the client from head to toe. Do they have any history of drug abuse? Are they an alcoholic?
Sure.
Any history of mental illness? What's their home life like? That kind of thing. I guess just to answer your question quickly, I think I'm the quickest to resolve a situation without it involving the supernatural, so to speak. Debunk, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Or validate, for a better word, because if you debunk, that means somebody is trying to perpetrate a hoax. But many cases, in my experience, the people truly believe that something paranormal is going on, and when we resolve, or if we investigate and bring it to a non-paranormal conclusion, it kind of makes them feel better. Well, geez, at least I'm not going nuts or something. Listen, Stephen, you and I have to take a short break. Please stand by. Great talking to you. Looking forward to spending this hour with our guest, Exo Nation. His name is Stephen Lancaster. And if you'd like to find out more about Stephen, Facebook.com, author Stephen Lancaster. That's author Stephen Lancaster. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and this is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard Monday through Friday from 11 p.m. until, now it's 3 a.m. Eastern, as we continue investigating the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology right here from our broadcast center after 25 years on radio here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.